Hey everyone. In this video we are going to go over the PowerPoint on abstracts. So an abstract is typically a required element of an APA research paper. And I know we looked briefly at one when we went over the sample APA essay. But we're going to talk a little more in depth about them now because it might be something that you haven't had to include in an essay or a research paper yet. So you will be required to have one in your course project essay. So we're going to go through and see what abstracts are all about. What is their purpose? How do we do it? What do they look like? All that stuff, right? So, what is an abstract? It is basically a summary of your paper. But it is a summary that includes some very specific information, right? The abstract is usually about 150 to 250 words long. So it's not, it really is just like a paragraph. But it is a very technical, efficient paragraph, right? And there are 4 distinct elements of the abstract, right? A sequence of the information. So that would be the overall purpose of the study, the information regarding the method and participants, how you did your research, right? How you got your information. The third section is more findings or trends, like what the results were, basically. And then your interpretations and conclusion. So 4 very specific types of information that need to be included in the abstract, but it is all together in one paragraph. And it needs to be so effective and efficient that the abstract should be able to stand alone from the rest of the paper. I should be able to read your abstract, and even though I know that reading the essay will give me a lot more information and explanations and details, right? I should still be able to understand the main concept of your paper by reading the abstract. And that comes in handy. I'm sure if you haven't already, you might, during this course, working on your research paper, you might come to realize how useful abstracts can be because they can stand alone and are self-contained. If you are researching a topic and you go to a database and you have all these articles, all these choices, it can be overwhelming. And you've tried to narrow your search as much as possible, but sometimes it still gives you a lot of results to sift through. But you can read the abstract of these articles, and the abstract should be able to tell you if that particular article will be useful to you. If it is, if you think it might be, then you flag it and you read it at some point. If you read the abstract and you're like, yeah, no, that's not really what I'm looking for, then you don't read it, right? It saves you time. The abstract can be super useful, right? The purpose is as much as probably exactly what you would imagine. It's to give the reader an overview of the essential information before reading the entire article. That's what you're aiming for. You're aiming for this encapsulated paragraph, no more than 250 words normally, that tells us exactly what you did in the paper, right? We're going to look at each of those 4 sections of the abstract. We're going to look at them in depth, okay? Couple things about an abstract, though, technically, making sure that it is in proper APA format before we get into how to actually write the abstract. First of all, it goes on page 2 of your research paper. Page 1 is the title page. Page 2 is the abstract, and even though it's only 1 paragraph, there'll be a lot of white space underneath. It still gets its own page. Page 3 is where the essay actually begins. You have your title centered, and then your introductory paragraph, and then moving into your body paragraph. So the abstract is on page 2. It still gets the running head. Right? If you did your running head the correct way for your title page, every page of your document will have that running header, including the abstract. When you get to page 2 and you go to begin typing your abstract, the first thing you'll do is on the first line of text, you will center and type out the word abstract. No special font, no underlining, no boldface, nothing like that. Just the word abstract centered. And then you'll hit enter one time. And then go back to a line left so you're not centered anymore. Right? So it'll come back out to the left. And then you immediately start typing the abstract. It's double spaced, just like the rest of the paper should be. You'll use the same font as the rest of the paper, right? 1-inch margins like the rest of the paper. So make sure that you are adhering to those sort of technical expectations. You might also have a list of keywords that you're going to put at the bottom. You know, keywords, just like what it sounds like when we use keywords to search for, you know, something on the internet. If an article has those keywords listed in the abstract, they will show up on your results page. So your keywords will be a list of words that, you know, are very specific to your paper. That if someone wanted to find information on your topic, they would type in those types of words, and then your paper would show up as a possible source if we were publishing, right? So, you're not going to be required to do keywords for the course project essay, but just keep in mind that if you ever are required to use a keyword section on your abstract, you come down to the next line and you indent, and then you have the word keywords italicized in italics, and then you list those keywords. The list of words will be back in normal font, not in italics. So keywords in italics, and then the actual words listed in normal font, right? So let's take a look at those 4 sections of an abstract. So remember, we have the rationale, the method, the results, and the conclusion or implications. Let's look first at the rationale. The rationale is 1 to 2 sentences. It's the first part of the abstract. 1 to 2 sentences that describes the overall purpose of the research. You're basically justifying why you did the research. What is the importance of the research? Why would a reader be interested in reading the whole essay? Right? So you got to kind of hook us right there in the beginning of that abstract so that we understand the importance of the topic and research that you conducted in the essay itself. Right? So again, 1 to 2 sentences, maybe 3. On slide 6, I have some examples of the rationale portion of some abstracts. There are 3 examples listed. We're going to look, you're going to see on other slides those same 3 abstracts being used as examples. At the end of the PowerPoint, you're going to see each abstract in full. So right here on slide 6, where it says example 1, that's just the rationale portion of that abstract, right? And then we will also look at the method portion of that abstract when we get to that section, and so on and so forth. And then again, at the end, you'll see each abstract in full. So I've given 3 examples here. For the sake of time, we are going to look at example 2. But you have example 1 and example 3 to give you a better, an even better idea of how each section of an abstract functions. But we're going to use example 2 and look at that abstract throughout, right? So, for example 2, the rationale portion of that abstract says, the current nursing shortage High hospital nurse job dissatisfaction and reports of uneven quality of hospital care are not uniquely American phenomena. Okay, we know the overall topic of this article and why the research was done in the first place. That these issues in the nursing field that we might often think is more of just something that happens to nurses in America, this research is actually going to show us that it's not unique to America. There, that's pretty easy, right? We know exactly why the research was conducted and why it's interesting and important, right? That was one sentence. Alright, so the next section is a method. So if you're doing like real true research, conducting experiments, doing observations, doing interviews or surveys or things like that, this is where you're going to explain what your methods were for conducting your research and getting your information, right? 1 or 2 sentences, just explaining what the method was. For you, more than likely, your method section will simply tell us what types of sources you used, because you're doing more of like a literature review in a way. You're not necessarily conducting experiments or doing observations. Some of you may choose to do some sort of survey or questionnaire, and if you do, include that here in the methods portion of your abstract. Let us know. For the most part, I anticipate everyone is going to be just conducting research and reading articles and looking at things on websites, possibly reading parts of a book, and you're just going to let us know what type of sources you used in your method section. But again, it's just a sentence or 2. Right? So let's look at the methods section for example 2 again. So remember, it's about nursing issues. So the method section says, this paper presents reports from 43,000 nurses from more than 700 hospitals in the United States, Canada, England, Scotland, and Germany in 1998 and 1999. So, again, one sentence. A very efficient, to the point explanation of how they conducted their research. The next section is the results, right? So the results, again, another couple sentences that just indicates to us what your main findings were, what the biggest takeaway is from the research you conducted, right? So let's take a look at the result for example 2. Nurses in countries with distinctly different healthcare systems report similar shortcomings in their work environments and the quality of hospital care. While the competence of and relation between nurses and physicians appear satisfactory, core problems in work design and workforce management threaten the provision of care. So when they interviewed or, collected information from those 43,000 nurses, this was what the overall consensus seemed to show. That's what they whittled it down to. 2 sentences indicating the results. They will obviously go into way more detail about those results in the essay, in the article, but this is the big takeaway from it. And then the abstract ends with the conclusion and implications. So a very brief summary of your conclusions and the implications of the research. What the results mean, where we go from here, right? What changes should be implemented? How does this add to what we already know about the topic, right? Let's take a look at an example that might help make it clearer. So, for our nursing example, the conclusion section of their abstract says, resolving these issues, which are amenable to managerial intervention, is essential to preserving patient safety and care of consistently high quality. So that's why the research was done. That's how they did the research. That's what the research revealed to them. And this is why those results are important, what we need to do about it. Right? Issues need to be resolved. Alright, so let's take a look at slide 14, which provides the full abstract. All those 4 sections together in the abstract. All one paragraph. Remember, it's 4 sections, but it's still all together, as you can see there on slide 14. So, the full abstract, reading it from start to finish without any breaks. The current nursing shortage, high hospital nurse job dissatisfaction, and reports of uneven quality of hospital care are not uniquely American phenomena. This paper presents reports from 43,000 nurses from more than 700 hospitals in the United States, Canada, England, Scotland, and Germany in 1998 to 1999. Nurses in countries with distinctly different healthcare systems report similar shortcomings in their work environments and the quality of hospital care. While the competence of and relationship between nurses and physicians appear satisfactory, core problems in work design and workforce management threaten the provision of care. Resolving these issues, which are amenable to managerial intervention, is essential to preserving patient safety and care of consistently high quality. We know a good bit about this article before we even read it. We don't have any real answers or any real understanding of the research just yet, but we know what this essay is all about. We know what the article is all about, and that's helpful, right? So that is what you're going to aim to do when you start drafting your course project essay. You will have an abstract that follows this pattern, contains this specific information, and we're going to practice on those, right? I'm not expecting the abstracts to be perfect. It's not easy. It seems like it would be super easy. You know, oh, it's just a paragraph, it's just a summary. But to take all that time and work and knowledge and try to whittle it down to one paragraph of no more than 250 words and hit those 4 specific pieces of information, it takes some practice. And here's our chance doing this course project essay, right? So just do your best, and it's not something that you will necessarily be good at right away. It can be tough. Alright, so what I'm going to leave you with, though, is the last slide of the PowerPoint and some things to avoid as you start working on your abstract. The abstract should not contain lengthy background information. We don't need it in the overview. If you provided background information in the essay itself, that's fine, but you do not need to include that in the abstract. It should not reference other literature. Now, you can tell us what types of sources you used, and you can even list specific authors or specific websites or specific databases, whatever the case may be. But what it means here, that it should not make references to other literature, you should not be quoting or paraphrasing from any sources in the abstract. Because the abstract is your summary of your essay. There shouldn't be any outside sources coming into play as you write your abstract, right? Don't end with ellipses. Don't have any, ellipses are the 3 dots. Don't have incomplete sentences. Should not have any abbreviations or terms that might be confusing to the reader. And there should not be any sort of illustrations or figures or tables or charts or graphs or references at all, right? So keep those things in mind, not only the elements that you are supposed to have, but also some things to make sure you don't have in the abstract. And as always, use what is available to you to help yourself. Look at other abstracts. There's 3 here in this PowerPoint. You have a 4th in the sample APA essay that we went over. And I'm sure you can get online. If you haven't already read an abstract during your research for the course project essay, you can easily get online and search something up in an article and find an abstract. So read a handful of them. And even though you may have read hundreds of abstracts in your time as a student, reading them now with this specific goal in mind. Normally we're reading an abstract, our goal is to find out if we want to read the whole article. Now, go back and read some abstracts with your goal being, how do I do this? How do I write an abstract? It will change what you're looking for, how you're reading the abstract. But you can find a ton of them anywhere you look practically. So use that to your advantage. Okay. All right. If you have any questions about the PowerPoint, about abstracts in general, let me know. Otherwise, you guys are free to move on to the next item this week.